Okay, happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Jim Beggins, and this is our weekly beach talk. This week, we will be talking about what's driving home inventory shortage. I think since we have mostly real estate agents on this broadcast, I'm going to give you 12 different reasons why there's an inventory shortage. This is our second beach talk. The first beach talk that we had was last week, and we talked about the 16 little communities along the beaches. These beach talks are going to be primarily about barrier island properties. There are so many differences in the barrier island properties that we have to know about in order to serve our clients better. So just a quick recap, the 16 little towns from last week's talk that I've outlined, because they're different, but some of them are combined with other towns. So we have, the first one is Tierra Verde, near the Skyway Bridge. Second is Isla del Sol. Then we go across the Bayway Bridge to Pasagril, which is part of St. Pete Beach, which is town number 4. But don't tell the people in Pasagril they're part of St. Pete Beach, because they won't believe you. Number 5 is Sunset Beach, which is really part of Treasure Island, but don't tell the people in Sunset Beach that they're part of Treasure Island. Number 6 is Treasure Island. Number 7 is Madeira Beach. Madeira Beach runs from Johns Pass up a few miles to Reddington Beach. Reddington Beach is the biggest area of single-family homes along the barrier islands. It has 66 beachfront homes in a row with no motels or condos near them. Next to Reddington Beach is North Reddington Beach, and then Reddington Shores. And then we have Indian Shores. Indian Shores is one of about 3 or 4 places in the state of Florida where you can be on a big body of water, either the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean, and keep your boat in the back of your house on the intercoastal. So that's Indian Shores. Next to Indian Shores is Indian Rocks Beach. Indian Rocks Beach is basically known for having a lot of people from Tampa that like to come over here and have weekend places. Moving up from Indian Rocks Beach, we go into Bel Air Beach, which has lots of mansions right on the Gulf and bigger lots. After Bel Air Beach, Sand Key, which is very high-end condos mostly. A couple of residential areas, but mostly condos beachfront. After Sand Key, we go over the Clearwater Bridge to Clearwater Beach. And Clearwater Beach has North Clearwater Beach and South and regular Clearwater Beach. I consider them as one. And then number 16 is Island Estates. So all these little beaches, the only thing that they really have in common is that they're all on the Gulf of Mexico, or some parts of them are facing the Gulf of Mexico. So that being said, that influences lot values. So the lot values, I give the example many times, but if you get it, you'll understand why the beaches are different. And we'll use the example of a 50 by 100 foot lot. And if we're looking for a lot to build on the mainland in Pinellas Park, Largo, Seminole, you can find a lot for $20,000, 50 by 100 foot lot. Let's assume that if you picture that 50 by 100 foot lot, you put it on a flatbed truck and take it over the bridge to one of the 16 little communities and put it not on the water, 50 by 100 foot lot. The value of that lot goes up to approximately $200,000. That's 10 times higher by driving it across the bridge and putting it on a barrier island. So if you have that one, 10 times more, if you take that same lot and you put it on a truck and move it across the street and put it on the kind of poor part of a canal, it's $400,000 or double. If you take the same lot and put it on a truck and move it over to the Gulf of Mexico, it is $1,500,000 presently. That comes out to $30,000 a front foot on the Gulf of Mexico. So if you're going to build a house in Seminole or Pinellas Park and you have a 50-foot lot and you build a house on it, you're going to have a couple $100,000 in the house and lot. If you move that lot to the beach and don't put it on the water and build a house on it, the house is going to be about $400,000. Once you put it on a canal, move it over to a canal, it's going to be $600,000 or $800,000. Once you move it to the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to be $2-point-something million. Okay, so that's what we talked about last week. This week, we're going to expand a little, and we're going to talk about what's driving home inventory shortage. Those of us that are active in real estate, we're finding that we're in a lot of confusion right now, that there's a big shortage of homes for people to look at. And homes that are on the market for a short amount of time are selling fast. Those that are priced wrong are not selling at all. So it's a very confusing market. So we'll dive right in, and I'm going to give you 12 reasons why home inventory is low. Now, we know that real estate is we have hyper markets, which means that each market can be very different from other markets in the country. It used to be that it was so hyper market that you really didn't care about what was happening in the rest of the country. But in this case, with the internet and with Zillow and Trulia and all these other sites, real estate's becoming more national and international. So what's happening in one city can affect other cities. So what's driving home inventory shortages? There's a severe lack of housing inventory. Why? Number one, this is pretty simple. Most sellers want to buy, so the lack of inventory makes them wait. So you have millennials, you have older people, you got baby boomers that are saying, okay, for some reason we want to get out of our house, but where are we going to go? And they look on the internet and try to find a place to go and say, hey, there's no place as nice as our house right now, so let's wait. So you understand that the sellers become buyers or renters, and now they're finding it hard to find a home, to get a home. So they're deciding to stay. Number two, supply has not kept up with demand because of high building prices. On the beaches, it's interesting because when we use the example of the lots that I showed you in 1, 2, 3 different categories, the single family home not on the water, single family home on a canal, and a single family home on a beach, the difference in price goes from $200,000 to $1.5 million. When we go to the mainland and we look at building prices, if we go into South Hillsborough County for $85, $90 a square foot, you can find a national builder that will sell you a home for $85 or $90 a square foot with granite, including the lot. So I said to builders, and I brought many of them over to the beaches and said, hey, Mr. Builder, if you're building for $90 a square foot, if you double it over here and you build for $180 a square foot, the only big difference would be that you would tell your subs, instead of building 100 houses in a row, they may build 100 houses within 8 miles of each other, but it can be the same house. And every one of the builders that I brought up over here said, that's a great idea and we'd make money doing that, we think. However, that's not our model. And because it's not our model, that's not what we're going to do. So I said, okay, well, that's too bad, but therein lies an opportunity, because we found that if you want a home built along the Barrier Islands and you can't find a national builder to build it, and there's very few that are doing any building over here, you are forced into using a custom builder that is building out of his pickup truck mainly. These prices are somewhere between $250 and $400 a square foot. And they're that high because of the subs. Each sub that gives a bid on a house wants the plans for the house, and if it's the same plan over and over again, then they can give you a good price. If it's a different plan every time you build a house, then they're going to cover themselves with higher prices. So the idea would be to build houses that are cookie cutter houses that are just like one is just like the other. So, and we're in the process of doing 6 single family houses, 1,369 square feet, that are selling for under $400,000, $398,000. So remember, these are not on the water, they're on the Barrier Islands, but that is the lot equivalent of $200,000 for a lot. Then you put a 1,339 square foot house on it, and you have a house that's right around $400,000. We can duplicate that house as long as people don't make changes. We've planned for 6 houses, contiguous houses next to each other, that go from one block to another block in Madeira Beach. We have 4 of them under reservation, under contract. Now we have 2 left. Once we get the 6 built, or before we build the 6, we're going to build 1 model behind our Madeira Beach office, have it a furnished model, and we'll be selling to individuals from that model. Okay, so you get the idea of the custom builder. So number 2, supply hasn't kept up with demand because of high building prices. The high building prices, if you take $300 a square foot times a 1,500 square foot house, you got $450,000 for the house, and you have $200,000 for the non-waterfront lot. That's $650,000 for a new home. There's not many people that are going to spend that kind of money, and we have no other builders to build at economical prices. So that's number 2. Next reason, what's driving home inventory shortage: rising mortgage rates encouraged sellers to stay put. They may have bought their house when rates were low, and they say, okay, we're going to buy a new house. The prices are about 3/4 of the way up from where they were at the peak in 2005. So we're going to have to pay a lot of money for a house, plus we're going to have to pay a lot of money for mortgage rates. When there's uncertainty that kicks in, people decide to do nothing, so they wait. That's number 3. The supply shortage, number 4, is increasing. So we look at on MLS every day, and we don't see a whole lot of places on the market. Those that we do see on the market, if they're priced right, are going quickly, and they're going with multiple bids. That's a little bit scary because that's what was happening at the peak of the market the last time. So the supply shortage is increasing, and I'm talking about mostly on our beaches. And I'm focusing all my beach talks on the beaches because I call it beach talks. But also, there is more demand from people worldwide on beachfront property than any other property. So I would, when you're thinking about people moving to Florida, they like to live on the water, whether it be a drainage canal, a river, a lake. a canal, or the beach. So there is a lot of demand for beachfront stuff. Number 5, several years of job growth brings more buyers. So job growth in this country has increased. They're coming out every month and saying that there's more jobs, empty jobs filled. However, what they don't bring out is the salary growth. More people are getting work, but the salaries are not really keeping people up with inflation, and it's forcing the buyers that are getting jobs to buy the cheaper houses, and that's not what we focused on the beaches. So that's driving a lot of agents to go inland to sell their clients, because there's more clients that are buying cheaper houses than buying expensive houses, until you get into the really expensive houses, which we'll talk about later. So that was number 5. Several years of job growth brings more buyers. Number 6, the age of sold homes has almost doubled since the last housing collapse. This is a fascinating figure. In 2006, the median age of a home in this country was 15 years old. So now it's almost 30 years old, because there's been a lot of inventory on the market and it hasn't sold for the last 15 years. So now we have an average age of 30 years. So as homes get older, they take more repairs, and people don't want to buy them because they don't want to fix them up. Number 7, this is another fascinating one, because in my career, the average turnover over the last 45 years was that people move every 5 years. That's where we get into our farming technique of taking 200 homes, because people move every 5 years. So that means that in 1 year, about 20% of the people would move. The worst it ever got was people moving once every 13 years. And that was really when women really started to get into the workplace. And then you had a husband and a wife, and they both had to lose their jobs or quit their jobs in order to make a move. So the tendency during those years was for people to stay in their houses much longer. So the average sale in 2008 was every 5 years, which was my standard, and now it's every 8 years. So people are staying in their houses longer for whatever reason. So if they're staying in their houses longer and they're not moving every 5 years, that in itself would decrease inventory considerably. Number 8, millennials are buying, causing mom and dad to downsize. Now this is interesting, because we talked about the millennials that got out of school and they said, oh, I want to go downtown and have a little apartment, or buy a tiny house and go live in the woods, or do whatever I want to do. And over the last 3 or 4 years, more and more of them have decided to buy. And there are developers that are making houses smaller, and condos smaller, and apartments smaller, to attract the millennials. Now, once the millennials move out of their parents' houses, which they did for expenses because so many people have student debt, that caused mom and dad to say, what am I doing with this house? My kids have moved out. My other kids aren't coming down from New Jersey because they got student debt, or they have a job, or for whatever reason, they're not moving down. So what are we going to do with this house? If the house is an average of 30 years old, then that even adds more, because as the baby boomers are getting older, and 10,000 people a day turn 65 in this country, so truly the country's getting older, they don't know what to do with the house. So the millennials are buying, some of them, but they don't really like the old houses, and they don't like the big houses, so people are stuck with them. Mom and pop want to move out and buy another house, but they can't find anything to buy, or mortgage rates are low. So we can see that all 8 of these factors all are pretty valid depending upon the individual that is facing the problem. Not all people face the same problem. Number 9, renters are attempting to buy. So people that are renting now are saying, well, rents are going up so high, I can buy a house, a cheap house or a cheap apartment or a condo, and I can buy it for less money than I'm paying in rent. So they're starting to do that. So that's making these little houses go away. And that's adding to the inventory shortage also. Number 10, the end of government subsidies for flood insurance this September 30th are forcing old homes to sell. Now, this is a real, this is the ostrich in the, with the head in the sand concept, because October 1st of 2013, if we took one of these $200,000 houses not on the water that was that had flood insurance of say $2,000 a year, which was standard in 2013, FEMA came out with rules that said, okay, guess what? Your flood insurance is now $12,000 a year. People said, what? Pinellas County, Florida is the most affected county in the United States for flood insurance. So we had a seminar in Treasure Island with 400 people in attendance, and we had people from the different insurance companies talk to the 400 people that were there, and they were outraged. How could I pay $12,000 a year on my $200,000 house, because that's $1,000 a month? That's more than my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on the house that I'm paying for right now. So you're saying you're going to double my cost? The government went back and reconsidered and came out and said, we're going to wait 4 years before we increase the flood insurance. That was in 2013. In 2014, they went and increased many people's insurance by 20 to 35% in 1 year. So the government lied to us, go figure. And then thereafter, year after year, they were increasing more. Right after these big high rates came in, Lloyd's of London came in and undercut other insurance companies and offered lower rates. Because in Florida, we've not been hit along the Barrier Islands with a hurricane for years. 2005 was close, but it went to Orlando in the center of the state. So we haven't had a lot of claims, so the insurance companies lowered the rates, but they still promised that they would go up. Just recently, the FEMA owes the U.S. government $25 billion in money that they've spent for disaster relief for floods and hurricanes. Mostly floods of rivers and lakes with tornadoes and stuff in the Middle West, and with hurricanes Katrina and Sandy, which was very poorly managed, so they spent a ton of money. So the subsidies are stopping in September. There's bills on the floor right now to extend it. I don't know where the money is going to come from to keep the flood insurance rates low. But to give you an example of our barrier islands, there's about 49,000 single-family homes and condos in the 27 miles of the barrier islands. Out of those, guessing about 30,000 are condos, leaves about 20,000 single-family homes. Out of those 20,000 homes, 75% of them were built in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and pre-firm, which means that they were built before there were rules about flood insurance. So that basically means that if flood insurance goes up, and the best bet is it's going to go up considerably, those homes, the 75% of the homes, have to be worth less than the 25% that are already built up. And by built up, I mean that most of them that are that have low or very low flood insurance have the garage underneath, no living area under the garage. So that means that the base flood elevation is up around 13 to 18 feet above sea level. In Florida, if we have a storm surge, it generally comes into a house and goes right out the other side. And it's not like in the Midwest when a river overflows and the water stays in the house for a week and rots everything out. So it's basically, if you have nothing down below except a garage, the water will come in. There's nothing to room down there. Your flood insurance will cover whatever is room. If you have your living area below that floodplain where the storm surge comes in, you'll destroy everything in your home. And that way, the $250,000 flood insurance premium will not rebuild your home. And so you're out of a home, and then the government has to take care of you, and they don't have any money to do that. So we'll see what happens with that. But if you come over and you take one of your old homes and you build a new home on that lot, automatically your house goes into the 20% and is worth a bigger percentage than the ones that are existing on the lots. So at the beginning of my talk, when I talked about the $200,000 lot, the $400,000, and the $1.5 million, those examples, many of them are with houses on them. So whether they have a house on or not, you have the same value of that house and lot. In fact, sometimes it's worth less because it's going to cost you $10,000 to $15,000 to tear that house down and get rid of it so you can build a new house on. So the lot is actually worth less than with the house on it. So if someone has a choice between a non-flood prone house and a flood prone house, they're almost all going to take the one that's built up. Now, if it's built up and it doesn't have an elevator or some way to get up as people getting older, that house won't be too sellable either. So the ones that we're building have storerooms built as elevator shafts so you can put an elevator in later on. So that's a long description of number 10, which is the end of government subsidies for flood insurance this September are forcing old homes to sell. Number 11, on our barrier islands, increasing land costs are making old homes obsolete. So if a lot not on the water is worth $200,000, that's higher than it was 10 years ago, and much higher than it was 15 or 20 years ago. At the bottom of our market, before the big rise in 2005, the same lot that's $30,000 a front foot was $15,000 a front foot. So the bigger the property is close to the water, the more appreciation in that lot. So at $15,000 a front foot, a 50-foot lot was worth, what's that, $750,000. At $30,000 a front foot, 50-foot lot on the Gulf of Mexico, $1.5 million. And then number 12, many sellers are thinking that prices will continue to go up, so they're waiting. When the market crashed in 2005, I said it crashed on November 15, 2005 at 8 o'clock at night. And it was almost that precise. Wasn't really, but it crashed very quickly, and people thought it was going to continue to go up. People now, many people that I talk to, and I talk to people every day and have been for many, many years. And I've never seen a time when so many people said they have to sell, but used one of these 12 reasons, or 2 or 3 or 10 of them, to say why they weren't going to make a move now. So if you consider that there are many people out there that want to make a move because of their personal situation or one of these 12 items, what do you think will have to happen to the market or to circumstances to cause a lot of people to put their houses on the market? And if those circumstances come about, is it possible that we would have a deluge of homes on the market, meaning incredible inventory increases? What do you think? What do you think, Steve?
Actually, the inventory is short, they think that this price will go high, and that's why a lot of them are delaying.
Yes. So he's saying when he's talking to people about this, people are thinking that prices are going to go real high, so they may have 6 or 8 of these factors involved, but they say, well, you know what, there's really no push to do that, so let me just wait. Come back, call me in 3 months.
Also, the buyer side is saying, no, I'm waiting because it is almost time and it will crash.
Aha. So the opposite of that is when we're talking to buyers, the buyer's saying, these prices are getting way too high. I'm not going to make this purchase. I'm not going to sign a contract now because what I read says the market's going to crash and I'll get a better deal. So I'll just rent for a while or I'll do something else. Okay, so I call these 12 items that are driving home inventory shortage a housing prisoner's dilemma. So think about that. The sellers are stuck in a prison of their own house, which they would love to get out of, but for one of these 12 reasons or any number of the 12 reasons, they're saying, no, we're not going to do it because I don't want to make the decision because I may make the wrong decision. So, and we're seeing this all over the country, but I think we're seeing it a little bit more when we get into the higher priced properties along in resort areas like we focus on. One of the reasons I'm doing this Beach Talk series is to attract buyers and sellers into these meetings, to be very transparent with them about facts that I believe in, that I will pick up, trying not to put a whole lot of personal opinion in it, because whatever your opinion is, I'm not going to change your mind, but I can give you facts that may unconfuse you. I used to call my seminars before, in fact, the radio show that I did, it was called Informed Confusion, because since most opinions about real estate can be supported with facts, I'll inform you to the best of my ability so you can unconfuse the facts to your personal advantage individually. I think I can use hands-on experience in Florida real estate since 1970 to achieve your desired income. So when we did this before, and just like everything else that we do in real estate, when we find something that works, we stop doing it because we get so busy because what we did was working that we don't do what we did before. So this is an effort for me to do what I did before that worked, and we'll see over the weeks and months that we'll get more and more buyers and sellers and agents that will start to trust us. That's why you can log on to, or you can have your customers log on to c21wizard.com. They don't have to put in any information. We don't have to know who's on the site. We're not going to bother them. There is no obligation to do any business with us. Hopefully, if you refer your buyers and sellers, then we don't know who they are, but they will contact you. You will know who they are, and you can contact them. And if you have any questions for me, I'll answer the questions. So back to the housing prisoner's dilemma. People need to sell while others need to buy. Both sides seem to be stuck. There are numerous solutions once we know your personal situation. So every seller and every buyer isn't going to have all 12 of these things that are driving home inventory shortage. But every buyer and seller will have some of them. And we can explain what they are and how to deal with them. So our weekly beach talk addresses all of the barrier islands concerns. So we're going to address things on our beach talk seminars that are mostly and almost always geared to our 16 communities along the barrier islands. Those of us that are in, or those of you who are in Sarasota and Bradenton on the Gulf of Mexico, those barrier islands, it should be very similar. I don't know that market and don't intend to know that market, but I do know this market. What I found is that, and this is kind of funny because having so many agents over my career, I pretty well get to know you because I am one. So I know the way you think, I know the way you feel, I know what you do, and I know what you don't do. And we found that when an agent will come into one of our beach offices, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I do know what it is. You look around and you see people that are selling on the beaches, and you'll see a lot of the top agents that are selling beachfront properties and barrier islands properties, and they make you scared because there's so many differences along the barrier islands that you think it's a lot easier to go to Seminole and sell something than it is to sell on the beaches because the good agents are on the beach and you don't know how to be a good agent. Through knowledge, you can become a great agent. The main value of a real estate agent is their ability to gather and transmit knowledge. Now, when you get the knowledge that I give to you, you evaluate that knowledge and see how it applies to you working with your clients. If you have a question about anything about beach properties, contact me and we will answer it. Those of you that tuned in last week, and thank you for doing that, we're setting up a new concept. And I said, this is, when the internet came out, I came up with this website, www.olddogattemptingnewtricks. And I had a picture of a dog at a computer and typing in that website. So this is my effort to make up for the miserable job I did on my radio show before, so I can do this from my cell phone if I have to. And it's not going to be me every week. It's going to be guest speakers that we have. We'll have roundtables with buyers and sellers. I urge you to bring your buyers and sellers in that have questions, and we will answer their questions. I have 3 goals in my primary aim. One is to get my little office, my St. Pete Beach office, to focus on zip code 33706 and become the premier company in this zip code. The most knowledgeable real estate agents in 33706, which includes Paso Grill, St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, and Sunset Beach. My agents will focus on those 4 cities, and they will not turn down something outside of that area, but that maybe their bread and butter, if their sphere of influence happens to be off the beaches. But I want them to have a place to come home to when they want the big deals. And the big deals will get bigger quicker on the barrier islands than they will inland. without question in every downturn in the real estate market, and I've been through 4 of them as a broker in Florida. Every downturn, the beach properties don't go as low as the mainland properties, and they come back much higher than the mainland properties. So since we're commissioned to agents, and $1 million commissions on $1 million house is 10 times larger than the commission on a $100,000 house. So I want you to keep that in mind. So let's see. A little talk about migration. Started my career in Miami, Florida, at a time when Miami was in a big change. It was a little town that started getting inundated with people from Cuba, immigrants from Cuba, many of them illegal. They came into Miami, they would be close to the Orange Bowl, and they would, 2 or 3 families would get in a little house and fix it up, and 3 of the families would move out, leave 1 family in, and that house was beautiful, and they took the whole area around the Orange Bowl and built it up. Then they did the same thing with Miami, the whole town. Some people, because Miami was becoming an international city, decided to move out, and they went across Alligator Alley to Naples. And Naples was a little tiny town with not many people in it. Naples became a thriving little city, which became a big city, and prices went way up. In the meantime, Miami became an international city where it was mostly Latin, and then people from Europe and people from Asia and people from Russia, investors all over the world came in and bought property and made Miami, I think it's the 10th largest city in the country as far as real estate investment goes, in the world, I'm sorry. So the people that left Miami went to Naples. After they went to Naples and built that up, they moved to Sarasota along Longboat Key. Every time people moved out of one of the cities into the next city, they increased prices. So you'll find right now that Miami is, for most part, double what the prices are here. Naples is almost double what the prices are in Pinellas County. Sarasota is quite a bit higher. I'm not sure exactly how much higher. And now the migration is coming into Pinellas County. We're now getting international visitors coming here that are now looking at investment because Miami is so much more expensive. The East Coast as a whole is more expensive until you get up Jacksonville and Daytona around there. But people are moving over to the Gulf of Mexico and increasing prices all the way up throughout Pinellas County. Now, interestingly enough, if that migration keeps on, the next city that would grow is the next city next to Pinellas County that has beaches and an airport and all the facilities that these other towns have. And where do you think the next city is that has all those things? You know? Where? No, after Pinellas County, where's the next really resort area of beaches? Pensacola. Now, what do we know about Pensacola? It's a military town. It is, some people call it the Redneck Riviera. It's a 6-hour drive from Pinellas County. And interestingly enough, there are no good beaches from here to Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, except for a little one in Cedar Key. So the migration for this climate here stops at Pinellas County. Because when we get up to Pensacola, The winters are worse. It's not the tropical climate that we have here. And so therefore, investors are coming to Pinellas County more than they will go to Pensacola or Fort Walton Beach. So we are poised for great growth over here. So I urge you, agents that are watching, to focus on our barrier islands. I plan on giving you more information about it as I get it. So we talked about the housing prisoner's dilemma. We talked about the 12 different things that are causing an inventory shortage. Again, to recap, one, sellers are buyers or renters, and there's no place for them to buy. Two, the supply hasn't kept up with the demand because of high building prices. Three, rising mortgage rates encourage sellers to stay put. Four, sellers shortage is increasing. Supply shortage is increasing. Five, several years of job growth brings more buyers. Six, the age of sold homes has almost doubled since the last housing shortage. In 2006, median age was 15 years. Now it's almost 30 years. Number seven, people are staying in homes longer. Until 2008, the average sale was every 5 years. Now its average is people are waiting 8 years on an average in order to sell. The millennials are buying, causing mom and pop to downsize because they're no longer in the houses. Number nine, renters are trying to buy. Number 10, the end of government subsidies for flood insurance this September are forcing old homes to sell. Number 11, on our barrier islands, increasing land costs are making old houses obsolete. And finally, number 12, many sellers are thinking that buyers will continue to go up, so they're waiting. And I could add a number 13 from our peanut gallery here. Many buyers are not buying because they think the market's going to go down. So now we have 13. Warren Buffett said, when others are fearful, be greedy, and when they are greedy, be fearful. What does that mean? Heather? When others are fearful, be greedy. When they are greedy, be fearful. Silence.
The real things that we connected to the realistic market, that this saying of reading the book. When they are fearful, be greedy. Like when they think something is not happening, it is happening. When they think it is not happening, it will happen.
Exactly. So what it's saying is figure out what everybody is doing and then do the opposite. And I'm not saying what you should be doing as agents, if there's mostly agents listening to me. I'm saying agents should go to work, because whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, that goes in cycles. I'm not going to tell you what I predict is going to happen, but when people are keeping their houses off the market and you're a buyer, don't buy. When there's a ton of properties on the market, don't sell. Try to go contrary. That's what I'm sorry, Warren Buffett said, when others are fearful, be greedy, and when they are greedy, be fearful. So what do you guys think as agents? If I came out with all these 12 deals, which I did, would that give a buyer or a seller enough good information to maybe ask questions of you that you could clarify for them a little bit? Right? I don't want to take a position and say, okay, I don't think you should buy or I don't think you should sell. I think that you should tell us what your situation is, which of these things affect you, how much it affects you, and then see if we can use our knowledge to get together and show you a way to go that works for your family. Does that make sense? So, depending on your goals, this may be a great time to sell or a great time to buy. Join us to gather information to decide. There are many home evaluation sites to check prices. I found that, and for all of you, if you go on smarthomeprice.com and check your value along with Zillow and RPR, but that one is one of the ones that you pick. I found that in our area, in our beach area, they are the most accurate that I've seen. That's an analytics program which Zillow has and other people have, but it's very interesting on why they come up with such a big variation in prices, which are probably good for us, because if you know how to do a strategic pricing analysis, then you know how to put them in charge of the pricing decision on their house, because we'll give them 15 comps when Zillow is just going to give them their own comp. So smarthomeprice.com will help you, and one of these weeks we'll talk about how to do actual spas the way I do them. So with that, questions, comments from the gallery here? Okay, we got a few minutes. I am going to give you an example of house prices on vacant lots according to the prices that I gave you for vacant lots on the barrier islands. Let's say that we are going to do a $200,000 lot, which would be what? 50 by 100 foot lot where? On the barrier islands, but not on the water. $200,000 for the lot, whether it's a house on it or not. So let's say we take that $200,000 house and we build a 1,500 square foot house at $200 a square foot, which is a lot less than most of the build out of your pickup truck builders go to. And we can build a lot cheaper than that, and the houses that we're building are cheaper than that. But that house, $200 a square foot times 1,500 square foot, is $300,000 for the house and $200,000 for the lot. That means to build a new house on a $200,000 lot on the beach, not on the water, that house is going to sell for $500,000. Now, why would anybody build a house like that at even at $200 a square foot? Why would they pay that much to build a house? We know that's the price of the land. So you can't change the price of the land unless the market turns down and the prices go way down. But right now it's about $200, $200,000 for that. So you're looking at a $500,000 house. That same house, if you move it over to the mainland on a $20,000 lot, which is a 50 by 100 foot lot on the mainland, you have $300,000 for the house at $200 a square foot plus $20,000 for the lot. You have $320,000 in that same house, not on the water, on the mainland. People pay that amount of money to be on the beach and not even on the beach. Now let's take that lot and move it to a canal. And let's take the same on the water, put a 1,500 square foot brand new house on the water, $300,000 for the house. And I said the house on the 50 by 100 foot lot on the water is how much? 400,000. Now we have $700,000 for a brand new house on the water, on the canal. You guys have all sold, and we know that houses have sold for $700,000 and $800,000 on canals, but 75% of them have living areas below the floodplain, which means they're going to get killed with flood insurance at some point. So it would make a lot more sense for someone to build a $700,000 house, brand new, that has low or no electric bill, total insulation, hurricane-proof windows and throughout, and no or low flood insurance. Instead of $12,000 a year or $15,000 a year, you're paying $500 a year. So it makes a lot of sense for people to build that. Now, if we take that same house and we put that on the beach, it would be $300,000 for the house. And how much for the lot? $1.5 million. So now we have a $1,800,000 house, which was the same house you put not on the water, and you put it on the beach. It would take an idiot to build that kind of house on the beach. So if we took a house that was 3,000 square foot, and we made it $300 a square foot because it'll be primo finishings and all that, we have $900,000 for the house, and we have $1.5 million for the lot. You have a $2.4 million house. And if we built that house, we would sell it, because I have examples of houses that have sold for that amount of money on the beach. And there will be more people that will buy that $2.4 million house on our beaches than they would ever pay for a $2.4 million house in Seminole or Largo or whatever. So you can see, just like the progression of houses from people moving from Miami to Naples to Sarasota to Pinellas County, you're finding migration of people from Pinellas Park to Seminole to the beaches not on the water, to the beaches on the water, to the beaches on the canal. So as a real estate agent, to develop your career, I would suggest that maybe you focus on the higher end properties. If you take an example of what I sent you all, which are the 12 items I just covered, and get those out to your clients that are looking for beachfront property, and explain them to them. If you have any subjects for me to cover for next week, I don't know what the subject will be yet, but I thank you all for joining me, and that is our second beach talk completed. Have a good night. I hope we haven't locked any of you out. Have a great week. And grand opening at our Stinkney Beach office tomorrow, 5050 Gulf Boulevard. Booze, food, fun for all. Oh, Thursdays. Oh, sorry, scratch that. Wednesday. Thursday from 4 to 8, you're all invited. Thank you and good evening.